Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new NVIDIA daily update video. Today, as per usual, let's go over NVIDIA stock. Let's go over what is happening to the stock, what is going on, and what I can see happening next to the stock on a pretty wild week with elections and FOMC on Thursday. So, as per usual, let's just jump into it. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my analysis, I do have a membership section on YouTube where I share my analysis every single day, right? Updates on Tesla stock and sometimes other stocks as well. Like recently I've been doing AMD, Coca-Cola, actually Disney, Google a little bit too. And then of course for $5 a month, you get access to all of that plus NVIDIA daily updates as well. But jumping into it, let's just get right into it. I don't know if I said this or not, but I'm not a financial advisor and this is not financial advice. NVIDIA closing the day pretty much at $140 per share, almost at 3% up in the day, which compared to the market, you can argue is pretty much roughly in line with the market. Now, what does this mean moving forward for NVIDIA? It's down a little bit post-market hours, and you might be wondering why. Well, that's because SMCI just reported their earnings, and it's down pretty much 10%. Horrible stock, horrible company. My advice is, okay, this is not my advice. I'm not going to say I'm not a financial advisor, but I personally avoid the stock with a 10. Honestly, the longer the foot pole I can get, the bigger I would use. I hate the stock, hate the company, dislike it whatsoever. But the reason I bring it up, if SMCI, something happens with that, it could potentially kind of bleed over a bit to NVIDIA. So just watch for that moving forward, after hours and tomorrow. But looking strictly at the technical analysis for NVIDIA, right? So let's talk about the bullish side first. But the bullish side is pretty simple, right? Like I said, technically, as long as NVIDIA is above 130 and especially above this market bias, well, it's bullish. Plain and simple, it's bullish. And that's exactly what happened. We had this massive sell-off. It was a scary candle. This actually could have been a bad candle. This could have started a bigger sell-off. It didn't. And instead, it came right to the market bias support and it bounced right off of it so far, right back up to 140. Now we're at a very important level, which I'll talk about very, very soon, right? 140, actually, I'll go into it now. 140 is important because this is a level that needs to break. 141, honestly, is even more confidence for me because you can see if I go over here, right? This kind of 140 to 141 level was a massive area of support back here. And I really want to see NVIDIA push back above it, right? If we can recapture 140 to 141, that to me will actually be a good sign. But we are pushing up on a little bit of lower volume, so it's a little bit less convincing. So we'll see how that plays out. The reason I want to see 140 to 141 recaptured, not only because it's obviously a horizontal resistance, but I also want it to be recaptured because right now there is a bit of a risk, especially if NVIDIA gaps down based off because of SMCI. I do see a potential head and shoulders pattern setting up here, right? Now it's not perfect and it's not guaranteed or anything like that just yet, but this is something to watch for moving forward on NVIDIA, right? This is a bit of a risk that you want to watch for moving forward, right? So just keep this in mind in the back of your head. So this is why we need to recapture 141 at least, because if we do that, we'll enter the territory of the head. And in my opinion, if you have a head and shoulders pattern, this right shoulder in this case cannot enter the territory of the head. If it does, it nullifies the pattern in my perspective, from my perspective. So if that were to happen, that would be bullish. If it doesn't, watch out. That's a little bit concerning, especially if we're pumping on lower volume. So in other words, again, NVIDIA breaking above 140 to 141 is very good for the bulls, and holding above, obviously, ideally, is much, much better. However, if we cannot, a little bit concerning. But with all that being said, as long as we hold the market bias as bullish, and as long as we hold 130, NVIDIA is bullish. If you start losing market bias and start losing 130, I think NVIDIA will quickly turn bearish, and I think we'll probably come back down to the low 120s pretty quickly and pretty easily as well. So watch for that. Now, some of the bearish things about NVIDIA here is the fact that the market bias band, even though it's starting to show higher lows, is actually still red. So, it's not flipped back to bullish just yet. Super trend, by the way, I want to make another one. Super trend is still bullish. I use super trend in confluence with market bias now. Essentially, if they're both green, that's just extra bullish signal. In this case, NVIDIA, like I said, they're still both green. The stock is still bullish. There's no question about that. It would pretty much need to start dropping below 130 for it to be bearish. As long as it's above 130 in market bias, it's bullish. It's really just that simple, right? But obviously, the idea here is, we want to see if we can sniff out anything that could potentially, signal to us that maybe he wants to start getting ready to potentially go to those levels, to potentially lose that level, right? We want to try to see this in advance before it actually happens, ideally, just for, to get ready potentially, right? And again, if we bring out, the bands, NVIDIA is pretty much in the neutral state. It's not overbought or oversold, but the indicators down here are still a little bit on the, questionable side. For instance, MACD still crosses the bearish side. RSI still below the yellow line, so it's a little bit on the more, less bullish side, we'll say. Stochastic is still cross bearish. I mean, it is actually flipping, which is not bad. It is actually curling back up, which is good, but the crossover has not happened yet. So watch for the crossover as well. And yeah, so I'm seeing those kind of signs, and it's not fully convincing me of this kind of move up just yet, especially on this low volume. I personally still want to see NVIDIA make its way back down. So for instance, if the market has a little bit of a panic sell-off because of the election or because we're heading into FOMC, NVIDIA can potentially make its way back down to here one more time to this kind of mid to low 130s. And again, as long as this level holds, I still think it's a very bullish position to be in for the stock. And I see no reason to be short NVIDIA. But if we start losing 130, that's where I will really get concerned about the stock. And I really wouldn't be surprised if it makes its way back down to at least the mid 120s, if not the lower end of the 120s. And that better damn hold, because if that starts to get lost, I think NVIDIA will get a lot more bearish very quickly. So you really don't want to lose that. But again, those are the main levels to the downside to watch. 130 is probably the most important one, around 130, bullish above, bearish below. Really that simple. And the closer entry you can get to 130 with that kind of thought in mind, of course, the better risk reward in my opinion and in my eyes. And that's just the way I'm eyeballing it right now moving forward for NVIDIA without overcomplicating it too much. Let's take a quick peek at SMCI to see how it's actually continuing to respond post earnings. Still down about 9%, recovering ever so slightly, but nothing too crazy. So yeah, again, keep in mind, this can potentially affect NVIDIA, right? For, in this case, probably for worse. But NVIDIA is not reacting too much to it so far. It's actually only down 0.15%, which isn't that much. I thought it might be more than that. It's actually holding up pretty well relative to SMCI being down almost 10%. So, I mean, that's pretty good. That's actually not a bad sign for NVIDIA. Maybe that's a bullish sign after all. But nonetheless, those are the main levels I'll be watching for. Now, in terms of options flow on NVIDIA, let's take a quick peek over here to see if we could spot anything. 30 million confirmed flow for NVIDIA today throughout the day, which is not too shabby at all. So NVIDIA definitely finally getting, picked up on that bullish flow a little bit, which is always a nice time to see. I also mentioned this in my Tesla video, but you can see someone towards the end of the day bought SPY puts, highly unusual SPY puts on SPY, 2.1 million inputs above the ask, $560 strike, which is of course out of the money, only expiring on 11/22, which is pretty much 2 weeks out. So pretty aggressive and pretty bearish options flow there. So again, if the market continues to sell off, right, NVIDIA most likely will make its way back down. In my opinion, closer to 130, but I don't think it'll go much lower than that as of right now, because again, I would really see NVIDIA lose 130 for me to really start truly flipping bearish. As of right now, because it hasn't, and because everything is green that I'm looking at in terms of the actual chart itself, I see no reason why it would drop down below 130. Not yet. That's one of those things where, if it happens, then I'll react to it accordingly. But as of right now, I can see a move back down to closer to the 130s, but I don't know if it'll drop below 130s yet. And I'm not going to assume it will until I see it, right? Because again, the stock still looks bullish. But yeah, all that being said and done, thank you so much for watching. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. Actually, I want to check very quickly the options flow here for NVIDIA. That's what I want to do before we, what is this? SPX, whoa. That's a lot of, okay, good thing I checked this. I just noticed this. A lot of puts came in on SPX, especially one towards the end of the day for December. Put came in for 58.15, which I think that's in the money if I'm not mistaken for SPX. 58.15, yeah, that is in the money. But 4 million with a put on December, that's a pretty massive one actually. So that's kind of interesting. We'll see how that plays out. But NVIDIA, where's NVIDIA? That's where I wanted to see. Let's see how NVIDIA, yeah, towards the end of the day, the options flow in NVIDIA, actually not too bad. Decently bullish, definitely more bullish than bearish flow. So yeah, I mean, the stock still looks great. Again, this is not a stock I would be shorting, right? I would personally be wanting to get a better entry, but I absolutely would not be shorting the stock unless it loses 130. If it does, that's where shorting it, yeah, actually might not be a bad idea, but that is not happening just yet. And maybe it won't happen for a while. Who knows? But yeah, thanks so much for watching. See you for the next one. Peace.